Hello everybody, my name is Mr. Evil Dictator and this is my Smite Assault Guide and Tier List. We'll start off with the tiers. SS is the God tier. Pretty much no one's at the moment is in this tier. So next is S+. These are pretty much your healers and the best of the best. Next is the S class. These gods are pretty much things you don't want to reroll. They're really good. It obviously still depends on team comp, but these are really good. A class are balanced. These gods are strong. They're not as good as S, but they're really strong. B are pretty much your counter picks. In Assault, you obviously don't know who you're up against. These can be really good, but it's dependent on team comp and player skill. And then C and D are pretty much weak. Really weak. Alright. We start off here at S+ with Opwash. He's really strong, he has tons of damage, good poke, an excellent ult for the Assault where it's only one lane, and he has free anti-heals. Next we have Aphrodite, she's a healer. Okay CC, good ult. She's just overall really strong in Assault. Sylvanas, he can be the tank or the healer or both, and he has good CC and heals, very strong. Hell, she's probably the best healer. She can get focused down, but she has CC immunity for your entire team if they're all standing together, and her damage is relatively good as well. Chang'e, she has anti-heals, CC on her ult, and CC immunity as well as healing. Very strong. Guan, built full CDR, he can heal just as much as the others, and he has a good ultimate as well as protection shred, which is pretty valuable. Then we have Ra, another healer. Pretty much all the top are healers, and overall good damage, pretty useful. Next we have the S tier. These are pretty much the ones that have poke or burst or just overall usefulness. Agni, he has poke and burst and some small CC, pretty long range, very useful. Zeus, he can get focused down because he doesn't have escape, but his damage is really high and pretty easy to confirm and pretty easy to poke people with. Giannis, another burst mage, good CC, good damage, and pretty good utility as well, even though there aren't very many walls that he can use. Nox, she saw a rework recently. The AoE silence is extremely useful in a team fight. Then the root and the ult is very long range, good for sniping, so she's overall a very good pick. Next we have Kronos. Stun, self, sustain, heal, and the ultimate is a get out of jail free card, and it's relatively easy to make it to late game in Assault if you have a chance at winning at least based on team comp, and he excels there and can do a lot of damage. Vulcan's pretty useful. The turret's good for zoning and clear, and he has poke and a pretty short escape in his backfire. His ultimate is actually pretty easy to hit because of how the Assault map is. It's a pretty large area, but you can usually catch someone in it, and there's so much CC going on usually that someone will get caught. Next, Scylla, she has excellent late game, and her early game's pretty strong, especially if you can get fed, and she has CC, and the ult is an absolute nightmare to deal with. So overall very strong. Isis, her damage is good, her utility, she has silence, stun, and her passive is actually really useful since there's so many deaths going on usually that she can really help sustain your team. And the ult is also very good for taking towers or just team fighting in general. Next, Poseidon. He's a bit susceptible to poke, but the Kraken is just super valuable, and the AoE cripple is very valuable. Next we have our ADCs. Rom, he's a hyper carry, excellent damage. The ult's very useful for chasing down a target or getting someone to low health so you can fight. Neith, pretty much the same. She offers CC, and the ult's excellent for getting someone at low health who got away. And then she has good sustain as well. Medusa, good poke, good damage. Because of all the chaos going on in a team fight, you can usually get the ult off effectively. Shibalanke has pretty good poke and poison darts, and the ult's really useful for starting a fight or chasing. Cupid, he's not up with the other healers, but his heal is actually pretty underrated overall. He has a lot of utility with CC and pretty good damage as well. The ult's massive, which is great on the kind of map you have on Assault. Next we have a couple warriors. These are the only two warriors that actually made it to S tier, and they're pretty special. Herc, his grab and push is excellent for picking off one target and just killing them, and then you're at a 4v5. Bellona, excellent team fighting ult, good CC and sustain. Overall, just a strong character. Sobek, he can pick off one target really easily, and then he has a knock-up as well as anti-heals on his 3, which can be extremely helpful. Ares would be a higher tier if it wasn't for the fact that so many people have CC immunity built into their kits, but he's just overall very good because of his ultimate and because of his damage. Next we have Athena. She brings a good amount of CC and some damage as well. Pretty much you taunt someone and they die, assuming your team is good at backing you up. Only 4 assassins were at this tier. Ratatasker, because with Opal he can just dash through an entire team and take out a lot of their health. He's really hard to shut down and just annoying overall. Nisha offers poke and the ability to just take someone out of a fight and kill them. Next we have the Monkey Hunbats. His ultimate is excellent for a team fight, very good at breaking everyone up and wasting beads as well, if you have something that, like an Ares ult, that you also want to use. And then he has some poke on the monkey and just good damage. Fenrir's best built tank in my opinion, but damage can work as well. You can jump in, grab someone, pull them out, and then they die. Next, here are some Guardians. All 3, Bacchus, Geb, and Ymir, they have CC, good ultimates, good damage, but not quite the same usefulness as someone like Sobek or Ares and Athena. They're overall really good and useful though. Next we have Thor. He's technically an assassin, but he works relatively well as a tank too. He offers a good amount of CC and damage. If you max your hammer at the start with Jotuns, you can almost one-shot a squishy, which is very useful. Especially, and it's hilarious if you actually kill someone right off. Next we have Uller and Apollo. These ADCs aren't quite as good as some of the others. They, mostly because their ultimates aren't as useful, they don't bring as much. Uller doesn't have one, but he does have relatively good poke. Apollo has a mez, but a mez usually gets broken really quickly in a fight. Next we move down to A tier. Habois, he has poke, but he's also susceptible to being poked down as well. So, and without blink, it's really hard to use the ult and not put yourself in a bad position. Anubis, his damage is fantastic, and if he has a team that can really peel for him, he is just great, but without that, he has some difficulty. But overall, pretty good, especially with the sustain and lifesteal. Next is Nuwa. The main issue here is others do the job better. Her CC isn't super reliable, and Her ult can be very useful if you use it correctly, but there's usually just better burst mages. Next up, Tyr. Tyr is a bit like a worse version of Hercules. He can heal himself and pull people, but it requires a bit more skill, and he's just overall not as good. Thanatos, a bit like that. He has sustain and poke and a silence and an execute, but sometimes if you lose the early game or something happens, then you're relatively useless. Next, A tier. These are your balanced picks. Vimana, he's strong. He doesn't really offer too much in the way of CC, but he can work out. He has relatively good damage, but there's just overall better ones. Osiris, kind of the same. He has a bit of CC, full anti-heals though, which can be very useful if you're facing one of those healers. And Odin as well. Odin, his ring has full anti-heals. Again, very useful, but sometimes you just get trapped in there. And his main damage is also his mobility, so he kind of loses out there. Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong has single target CC and pretty good ultimate for sustaining and a little bit of poke. He's strong, but by no means overpowered. Same with Chalk. He has good sustain, some poke. His ultimate's great for team fighting, but again, he's not overpowered. He's just pretty good. Artemis, the other ADCs can pretty much do what she does, but do it safer. So that's why she's there. Mercury, some poke. He has a throw and a stun on his ult, all of which are desirable. But again, not as strong as some of the others, so which is why he's A tier. He's not broken. Kumbhakarna, he offers a lot of CC, but the mez will usually get broken pretty quickly by someone else, and there's just better, larger CCs that are more desirable. Next we have Basset. Her poke is a little bit risky, considering all the CC that's in the game, and the main issue is that her cats die too quickly in a team fight. They can get destroyed in a couple skills, and it's just not desirable, really. But she's a strong pick. Kabrakan, the main issue with him is that his CC is so short-ranged. His damage is probably a little bit too high, really, but if he's using Tremors, he's just a big target. Next we have Amuzen-Cobb. Kind of like Artemis, he has relatively good poke, a good ultimate, pretty good sustain from the hives, but there's just overall better choices, and if you're not winning, you're going to get destroyed. Kukulkan, he makes or break with the ultimate, and if you don't hit the ult, you kind of lost that fight. But it is a little easier to hit than some of the other modes because of usually all the CC and chaos going on. Next we have Nemesis. She's really... I prefer her as a tank actually in this mode. She works pretty well supporting others, although her only real CC is slows. The ultimate though is really good for bursting someone. Next we have Bakasura. It's a bit harder to build up stacks, and you might get poked or CC'd for it if you try and go up to the minion wave as a melee. Otherwise, he doesn't really have poke or really too much in his kit that's extremely helpful besides damage. Freya, she's pretty useful. Not really broken exactly, but useful, good damage, good ultimate, some CC in the banish, but it really requires follow-up from other CC after the banish, which is why she's an A. Next we have Ao Kwong in A-. He's strong if he can get ahead, which usually the best you can hope for is that he blinks in and just ults someone so he can get out. Otherwise he will get CC'd and killed because he is rather squishy. Ho Yi is strong, his ultimate's good. The only real reason he's an A-, not higher, is because there isn't really good walls for him to use with his ricochet. You're pretty much never going to get a double bounce on anything, and besides that, he's pretty good. Hades works best if you can build him damage and if you have another guardian, and because he's kind of contingent on those, he is where he is. He doesn't have the CC or good things that other guardians have, or good defense like other guardians have. So he's A-. Still relatively good, but not fantastic. In B+, we have the rest of the assassins pretty much. A Wheelix almost requires the enemy team to have jumps, or your team to have a lot of knockups to be very good. Low-key, it's pretty risky for him to go in, and he doesn't really bring too much else to a fight unless he gets fed, and then he's a nightmare, but besides that, he's too easy to get focused down if he goes in. Arachne, another assassin that I like to go tank. She doesn't bring very much to the table at all, just some damage or some short CC, and her ultimate is her escape as well, so not the most useful. Kali isn't too bad, a bit of poke in the knives, and again, if she gets fed, it's really good, but overall not super strong. Same with Serket, her bit of CC isn't really reliable in a big fight, and her ultimate is a throw, but again, it's just hard to confirm, and she's squishy. Last we have the B tier, Zhonghui. It's really hard for him to build up stacks or heal, just because your teammates are sometimes jerks and take all the minions, and he just has to be so close to really do his damage or keep someone in range for a really long time for his ultimate to work. Last we have On Her. Again, kind of like Ho Yi, there's no walls for him to use effectively. The pillar can be useful, but not super great. He does have a jump, which is more than some people have, and the ultimate can be used for sniping, but his damage just isn't high enough compared to other ADCs. And that's all for the tier list. If you'd like to see more, like, subscribe, all that fun, comment what you'd like to see. If I get a good response, I'll make some more videos, maybe more about Assault, maybe more about the game in general. We'll see. Thanks for watching, and see you later.